Supervisor Solis, among other things that you've done, you've been Secretary of Labor. So you know a great deal about the workforce in the United States of America. One of the recurring issues, but it's hot yet again, is the substantial, it appears, gap between what men make and what women make in the workforce. What do we know about how big that gap is, and what, from your experience, could we do to address it?
Well, currently women make about 80 cents on the dollar, and for women of color it's actually even less. For Latinas it could be anywhere from 60%. For African American women it's about 70%. So we know we're still not earning the same amount as a male colleague doing the same work, and we also know that there's issues regarding just disclosure of salaries. If you're, say, in a management position or a vice president position and you are working there in a business or even in the public sector, oftentimes women are paid substantially less. Sometimes it could be more than 20% differentials, even greater. And I know here in California, laws have been passed so that you can't actually ask a woman what her previous salary was, or go to her employer and then make some comparison, and that sometimes disadvantages her because that salary will be a lot less than the current male colleagues that are in those similar positions.
The question for me is, how much can the government do as opposed to the private sector? Now, for example, in England right now, they have a requirement for the banks to disclose some of the information that you said was important to disclose. And what we're seeing is a big difference in pay, not so much for similar work, but because women are in more senior positions. What can we demand of the government? Is it disclosure, or does it have to go beyond that?
I think disclosure is one, but also there should be an effort made to help provide an unbiased set of standards so that people can be promoted. We're finding that in many ways, when you look at managers that are going to be evaluating employees to be moved up that ladder, there's a lot of discretion, and oftentimes that discretion is biased, and it's biased against women. And so you have to come up with tools that help to level the playing field, so you don't ask those questions that typically may disadvantage a female, a woman, or even someone who is has a family, and just being able to be more sensitive to how women interview, and that really takes a whole set of standards and circumstances to look at. So I think we have to start looking at a situation where you have fewer biases and actually really bring experts in to help you in your business or corporation to make sure that you are actually transparent, that you're treating people equitably, and that you're not tipping the scales that disadvantage women.
Another issue that applies to men and to women is the so-called skills gap that we're seeing right now. We talk to employers, to CEOs, to say part of the problem is they don't have the skilled people they need with the education they need in order to fill some of the important and well-paying jobs we have. What can we do about that? And again, is that a government issue? Is that a private sector issue? What can we as a society do to address that?
I think it's both. I think it's public and private. We have a responsibility, for example, to encourage more women to get into non-traditional fields. And one of the ways of doing that is helping them succeed in their studies. So, for example, if young women in junior high want to think about getting into science, we need to help provide a track for them, encourage them, mentoring them, giving them work experience in the industry. And I think that helps to create a better environment for them. They get used to it, and also having male colleagues understand that it's okay to have women engineers sitting next to you that are also very competent and sometimes maybe more competent.
Finally, what role, if any, can immigration play in addressing the skills gap? Because not a question of how many people left in, but President Trump is really advocating merit-based as opposed to lottery-based. And that's worked in other countries, it appears, like Canada. Is that a good idea for the United States?
I think that there's been a lot of talk about that. Even when I was in the cabinet, there was much discussion about that at that time. I don't think that's the only tool, because I still think we have to grow our own people that are born or come in through other immigration programs. But I do think it is important, once we educate, say, individuals from immigrant backgrounds from other countries and they get their PhDs or MPAs, we ought to be able to incentivize them to stay here. So, okay, at the end of your studies, will you stay here for for maybe 5 or 10 years, and we can use your degree to help create more jobs because you're one of the premier scientists or engineers or doctors in your own profession. Those are good examples of what we should be doing, but we can certainly grow this even internally within our own communities, and we ought to do both. You can't just do one or the other. You should do both.